Good morning, everybody, or good night, or good afternoon, whatever it is where you're at. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the time that I got caught doing DMT by my dad. So this is kind of a trip report, but it's more so revolved around the fact that my dad walked into the room while I was breaking through on DMT. So this is a pretty crazy story. When it happened, it was pretty overwhelming, but now looking back on it, it's really funny and really far out, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Well, let me turn this light up a little bit. Hopefully that doesn't mess up the lighting at all. We'll try to readjust. All right, hopefully the focus is all good. So, I'd say about 2 years ago, I was down at where I used to live. I'm living at a different place now, but I was down at where I used to live, where I've made all my videos when I first made my channel. I was down at my house and I was in my room, and it was about, I'd say, 10:30 to 11 o'clock at night. And my dad was home, and I decided that I wanted to do some DMT. And I was going to do it in a different way than I usually do. I usually would just sit there, maybe put on some music and smoke the DMT. But this time I decided I'm gonna put headphones in, lay down in my bed, and shut all the lights off so my room is completely black, and then smoke the DMT. So I was kind of going off of the silent darkness. I mean, not silent darkness, but the darkness aspect of Terence McKenna's recommendation to do psychedelics in the dark. So I had music blaring, probably some sort of chill step, something really trippy. And I laid down in bed and all the lights were off, and I had my pipe with the DMT in it. So headphones are in, pipe in my hand, it's completely black in my room. And, you know, I'm convinced my dad has gone to bed, so I'm all good to journey off into alternate dimensions. So the beginning of this trip is actually really fucking interesting. So I start taking the hits. I don't know if I took one big hit, or I took 3 big hits, or what it was, but I took the hits, and it started kicking in really strong. I remember I'm laying in my bed, and picture off to my left is my window, but it's covered by a blanket, and there's a little bit of moonlight shining through the top of the window that isn't covered by the blanket. So it was this little strip of light coming through my window. I smoked the DMT, and my eyes are completely open, and the only thing I can see is this strip of light coming through my window. All of a sudden, this light by my window starts swinging around my head. It starts whipping around my head. And this is obviously an intense hallucination, because that would entail that my window is spinning around my head. So this light came off the window and was whipping around my head, and whipping around in circles, and I'm laying there with my eyes wide open because it's completely dark in the room. So closed or opened eyes, it don't matter, you know, you're gonna see the DMT hallucinations. I'm laying there and I'm watching this light whipping around my head doing this insane shit, and then all of a sudden the light starts to cascade down through my vision, and it turns into roots or mycelium or something, and it starts to grow into this reindeer. It looks like a reindeer made of roots, or like a mycelium, like I was saying, and it was completely symmetrical. It looked like it was completely mirrored, and it had this incredibly vibrant, angelic vibe. It was like this reindeer was some sort of angel ascending down on me, straight up. And yeah, it was this very white, angelic, glowing reindeer formation that was forming in front of my eyes. And then, all of a sudden, I heard a sort of rustle, or I sensed that somebody was watching me. And I looked over, because my eyes are still open. I looked over, and what I saw was the door of my room had been opened. And standing in the doorway was the black silhouette of my dad. I knew it was him because I could see the shape, and I knew he was standing there. And I'm still in the dark, tripping balls, and he's looking into my darkened room. And he says, "Northwood Shaman?" Says my name. And I say, "Yeah?" And he says, "I was out in the living room waiting for the fire to die down a little bit. And I started hearing you..." I'm trying to remember exactly what he said. He said, "It sounded like you were being chased. I started hearing you giggling and laughing. And then it started to sound like you were shrieking and moaning, like somebody was running after you and you were scared." And he starts saying, "You were having a nightmare. You were having a nightmare. You're all good now." And if you get the message of what's going on right now, I'm laying in my bed tripping complete nuts on DMT. And my dad is in the doorway telling me, "Northwood Shaman, you were having a nightmare. Wake up." And proceeds to tell me why he came in. Because he heard me laughing and giggling and then moaning and groaning. And the thing is, I wasn't aware of how loud I was being because I had headphones in. So I was probably I remember how overwhelmingly euphoric this experience was. And I don't doubt that I was laughing and giggling and moaning and groaning in bed. And when he walked in the room, I'm laying there and I have the pipe in this hand, the lighter in this hand, headphones in, and a full-on DMT trip rushing through my body. And he's proceeding to tell me, "You were having a nightmare, and you're all good now. Maybe you should turn a light on or something. I love you, bud." And I'm like, "Love you too, Dad." And he shuts the door and goes back off to bed. So I follow his instructions. I turn a light on, and I'm sitting there. And this is like 3, 4, 5 minutes, maybe, into that DMT trip. And I'm sitting in my bed, still geeking. And I'm going, this just happened. He just came in while I was geeking on DMT. And he just told me he didn't even know I was tripping on DMT. He just told me I was having a nightmare. It was like he told me what's going on here. I didn't get caught. He walked in and told me, "Hey, you're having a nightmare. You're all good. Wake up." If he had walked in and turned the light on and saw that I was not sleeping, but I was actually sitting there with this strange pipe and lighter and headphones in, he would have immediately knew something was weird. But the fact that it played out in the way it did, where he was fully under the impression that his 18-year-old son was just having a nightmare and had to go wake him up. But in reality, what was going on was that I was breaking through on DMT and was losing sense of how loud and eccentric I was being, and caught his attention by doing that. So as I'm sitting there processing what just happened, I remember I called my brother, who was over at his friend's house, and funny enough, he was actually tripping on LSD at that time. And I called him, and I think I sent him a text saying, Dad just walked in on me doing DMT. And he called me, like, geeking, you know, thinking I'm in trouble and everything went to shit. And I let him know what happened, and we just sat in awe, you know, like, holy fuck, dude, you know. That was kind of a little too close of a call. And, you know, what we've come to think about that, you know, truly how I feel about that. The DMT gods, entities, higher powers, beings, the DMT realm didn't want my dad knowing that I use DMT. Didn't want my dad knowing about DMT. They didn't want my dad to know their son was high on this psychedelic drug. So in me exposing myself to my dad while I'm tripping because I'm being so overreactive, the DMT told my dad, this is a nightmare. This isn't, they told him what was going on. Your son's having a nightmare. And that is what he told me. And I knew otherwise. The DMT knew otherwise. But for some strange reason, my dad came in the room and told me what's happening. And I was just like, okay, yeah, I'm having a nightmare. Yeah, okay, thank you for helping me. You know, it was incredible. It was incredible, the fact that nothing weird happened. And it was really as if the DMT was watching over and was like, yeah, Northwood Shaman, you're not quite ready to get caught using DMT. Or, yeah, your dad isn't ready to see that you use DMT. Or, like I said, your dad isn't ready to even know what DMT is. So they safeguarded that experience. They blocked him out from knowing that I was on DMT. To the point that he came in and said what he said, that I'm having a nightmare. It was a completely different approach. And like I said, I was like, yeah, okay, that's what's going on, yeah. You know, it's like, yeah, I'm having a nightmare. I'm not high as hell on psychedelic drugs right now, Dad. Yeah, you're right. I was just having a bad dream. Thank you. Love you, Dad. Good night. You know, very bizarre experience. But yeah, that's really it for this one. The time that my dad walked in on me while I was breaking through on DMT. Who knows where that trip would have gone? But yeah, right as my dad walked in, and all that broke out, it was literally like my mind, it was either the DMT calmed down or my mind like started functioning in the DMT realm, because I was tripping balls like, okay, what the fuck just happened, man? You know what I mean? Yeah, really far out time. And I want this video to not just be a goofy story. Allow this to be a reminder that all psychedelics should be done in a safe environment where there aren't people who are supposedly going to get you in trouble or disagree with what you're doing. Be in a place where you're completely allowed to be experiencing that. Don't try to sneak in psychedelic experiences. But yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like I said, don't do what I did. Setting is important. And yeah, I'll see you guys later.